What is up, combat connoisseurs? It is almost time for UFC 315, and we got a lot of drama. We have some switcheroos, a lot of fights that are purposefully stacked up on this card because there's a lot of stories. So let's give it a dynamic breakdown, see what everybody's been up to, and get the 411. Our entire main card is full of ranked matchups in addition to two belts on the line, and we have some really exciting competition all throughout this card. I think it's going to be a great pay-per-view and a great return to Montreal. Here is our agenda, as mentioned, back in Montreal at the Bell Center, one of the most hype arenas that they've got. And if you don't know, the UFC has some major bloodline in Canada. We got to give a shout out to all of our Canadian legends, most famously GSP. You know him, what a legend. Some people, many people's favorite fighter, and a lot of people on this card, that's their favorite fighter. Coincidence in some ways, but maybe not, because we got so many Canadians. But we're going out of order here. Most importantly, we have a double title fight. So we have the welterweight belt and the women's flyweight belt on the line. That's a lot of drama. And we have ranked matchups all over this card. And as mentioned, Canadian talent everywhere. It's going to be a Canadian talent showcase. Time for Canada to reignite its reputation as a fight capital, the whole country of Canada, right? But Montreal especially, and Niagara top team, okay? We are going to have a big Niagara top team moment, a lot of fighters who are fighting at that gym, and we're talking drama. We're talking drama, women's flyweight drama for sure. There's a lot of really great flyweight matchups here, and a lot of people who have fought each other before in general. So, yes, we almost lost Benoit Saint Denis entirely with his fight against Alvarez being scrapped, but we have a fill-in. Also, speaking of scraps, Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales was supposed to be on this card, but was moved to be next week as the headliner. There's a lot of warriors on this card that don't have nicknames, so we had to make do. And as mentioned, GSP fans all over this thing. Not just the Canadians too, that's important to mention. And you know what else is important to mention is he's likely to be there. So they'll get to fight in front of their favorite fighter. For those of you who don't know, the first time that the UFC was ever in Canada was UFC 83, and GSP was on that card. I believe it was the headliner against Matt Serra. Wow, that is quite the matchup. Up first, we have a men's bantamweight fight with Superman going against the Turn Warrior. Brad Katona, Superman, was actually on The Ultimate Fighter 2 times, in season 27 and then again in season 31. And that season 31 tournament final was quite a war. That was really quite the performance. So after his first round in Tough, he was eventually cut from the UFC after a couple of losses. I think just two, but he is back again, back serious, right? And he's been living in the decision world. That's something to know about Brad Katona, is most of his wins are going to come from grinding it out, from being a tough cookie. He's a tough cookie and he's a smart cookie with a mechanical engineering degree. And right now he's coming off of a loss to Jean Matsumoto, young up-and-comer, but Brad is really solid, really durable. And he is going against Beksat Almakan, who is known for finishing people. So we have somebody who is got a lot of durability going against the Turn Warrior, who is known for finishing. He is coming off of his debut loss, right? But it was to Umar Nurmagomedov, which, okay, he just fought for the belt. So, quite the debut. Definitely has a lot to show as far as what he's capable of. He's never been knocked out, and neither has his opponent. I think the big difference, though, is that Beksat usually gets the finish. That's where most of his wins come from, but both these guys with a lot of things to prove and still making their way in the UFC. For Brad, this is his second go. I think Brad has proven to be exceptionally durable. I mean, both fighters have that durability factor, but I think if Brad can grind this one out and make it to decision, it might be able to go his way. Next, we have a men's featherweight with Wycat versus the Korean Tiger. So a lot of switcheroos on this card, which, there's usually at least one switcheroo on every card, but this one's kind of built on switcheroos. And Daniel's actually filling in for Gavin Tucker. Daniel was supposed to fight, I think, just a couple of weeks ago, but he has had a lot of canceled bouts, 3 in a row. And so we haven't even seen him since 2023, and he's back as a fill-in. So only right for him to come in on someone else's cancellation, since he's had so many canceled bouts himself, on a 2-fight win streak. But again, haven't seen him since 2023. He has never been finished, and you can look out for those ground strikes. If he can take it to the ground, look at him to get some strikes in. And he likes to keep it spinning. Okay, he's got a couple of spinning knockouts with both the elbows and the legs, so that's really fun. Really excited to see him back finally after so much time away, working with Diego Lima. So got a lot of good, exciting people around him, and it's been a while. And he'll be going against the Korean Tiger, Jung Lee, okay, who made his way to the UFC after completely dominating in Road FC. And right now he's 2-1 so far, so still making his way, but things have been going well. However, coming off of a TKO loss to Haider Amil, who also had a really brilliant performance recently. Haider is no joke. I think he's a really solid up-and-comer. And it's important to note that before that loss, Zhang Yang was on a 9-fight win streak. So he's been having a lot of momentum and definitely a chance to get it back. He is not really in the world of submissions. He does win every way, but he hasn't allowed himself to be submitted yet. And he's often looking for the clinch. The clinch is where he likes to get in some extra strikes, really take out some of the energy of his opponent. And you will also find him getting some ground and pound moments. Both these guys are pretty big on the ground and pound. This one is going to be athletic, I suspect. We got some young guys who are both looking to gain some momentum. We haven't seen Daniel in a while, and Zhang Yang is coming off of a loss after having a massive win streak prior. So hopefully coming in hungry, looking to get back in the win column. So we got some potential rising featherweight stars. Then we're moving it up to middleweight with Barbar versus Blindado. Marc-Andre Baralt, he kind of had a rough 2024, but Barbar is a TKO double champ who made his way to the UFC in 2019. So important to know that he is on a 3-fight losing streak, but also important to know that all 2024. So, as mentioned, 2024 was not really a great year for him. Definitely needs some momentum, but most of his losses are via decision. So he's definitely shown a lot of durability, and he's shown to be an absolute gamer. So his last win was a fight of the night performance against Eric Anders in 2023, and that was a really amazing fight. So that he has got it in him to perform, and he is a real finisher. So heavy power. He's looking to work it in that clinch, and he's a country boy. All right, he's a country boy. He's a dog owner. Seems like a lot of good vibes. And while he had a little bit of an unfortunate 2024, there is definitely some opportunity to bounce back from that. And he will be going against Blindado, which means armored. That's Bruno Silva. So both these guys around similar age, 35. Bruno has just a little bit more experience and also riding on a 4-fight losing streak. So both of these guys have a pretty significant amount of losses that they've been facing in the past year or so. So hopefully coming in, knowing that it's kind of make or break for both of them at this point. Bruno has never been knocked out. So a little different though from Andre is that a lot of his losses come from submissions. So maybe he's a little submission vulnerable. He definitely likes to keep it on the feet. He's a striker and a finisher himself. A big finisher, 20 TKO/KO wins. Oh my goodness. And important to note that 14 of them are in round 1. So for Bruno Silva, a lot of the action and a lot of the fights going in his favor are in those early moments. If he's able to catch you with his power, put you to sleep. So both fighters are finishers in this case, looking to get it done and get it done early. So Mark is a little bit vulnerable to the decision loss, losing a little bit of energy throughout the fight. Bruno, he is a little submission vulnerable, so maybe Mark will be looking for that. But both of them, where they find success is usually early. So this one could end in a flash. But yes, what we do know is that both of these guys are riding kind of a heavy losing streak. It's a little bit do or die right now for our fellas. This could be the last one, and I would say that it's kind of likely that whoever loses this fight could be their last UFC fight, at least for the time being. You know that people can make their way back, but at the big age of 35, kind of hard to say. Very curious about your guys' thoughts on this fight, if you have any, if you who you think is going to come out on top, if you think that it'll end in a flash. And yeah, now we have some prelims. First up, a light heavyweight fight between the kickboxing Kiwi and Lipizan. Neither of these guys had a nickname, so you're just gonna have to work with me here. Navajo Sterling, King of the Ring champ, young age of 27. He has been all over some very different fight promotions and made his way to the Dana White's Contender Series. He's new to the UFC, having come off the Dana White's Contender Series and made his way last year. Still undefeated, has not tasted defeat, 6-fight win streak, so, 6-0 with the math, duh. And he's quite the kickboxer, with that being his foundation, and thus far having avoided the world of submissions. Hasn't lost, so obviously hasn't lost that way, but also has not won that way and is not really looking for it in his fights. Something to know about Navajo is that he started fighting because he said he had no life direction. So he found direction in the cage, and we'd love to see that. Our kickboxing Kiwi making his way in the UFC still. And this is his second UFC appearance. He'll be going against Ivan Erslan, and it's also his second UFC appearance. So these guys are pretty new to the octagon. Erslan's coming off of a split decision loss to Kutilaba, and he is really powerful. So that's why we decided to give him a horse-related nickname, because horses are powerful, and I think those horses are in Croatia, so we were trying to, be on track somewhere there. But he's very powerful. 70% of his wins coming from finish, and not just finish like round one. So he doesn't really have to beat anything out of you. He can just knock you out when you're like clean, fresh. So definitely look out for those heavy hands in this fight for sure. This one's going to be really exciting because it's two people who are pretty green again in the octagon. One who's undefeated, hasn't tasted any defeat in any form. And then a power finisher who usually gets it done in round one. That's really exciting. Could be another one that ends in a flash. Then we have another light heavyweight, the Baltic Gladiator versus the Hulk. Speaking of which, Modestas Bukauskas, the Baltic Gladiator, is a Cage Warrior star. He is originally from Lithuania, but spent most of his young life in the UK. He also spent some time in Louisiana as well. So this man's a global citizen. But, being in the UK, had the Cage Warriors moment and a bit of a UFC stint, so it didn't go well the first time. Back to Cage Warriors, and then made his way back here in 2023. He's actually a 2-time Cage Warriors champ, so he did really well there. Just 7-1, just having a little bit of trouble in the UFC on that next level with competitions. 5-4 so far, but we can make it work because right now he's on a 2-fight win streak. So hello, he's finding his way. Looks like the experience back in Cage Warriors, maybe he was leveling it up again. I mean, he really did well in there, so he's ready, I think, definitely. And he prefers to knock you out. That's his wheelhouse, and he's pretty submission averse, so he's only lost via submission once, and so looking to finish you lights out, preferably with the fists. And he's going against the Hulk, who we were just talking about. Ian Kutilaba, two light heavyweight bouts back to back with a little a little drama in it. So Ian Cutelaba, he has been in the UFC for a long time. 2016, so he's a veteran. This is going to be, I believe, his 19th UFC fight. So snaps and claps. We're almost to number 20. Very cool. And he's actually coming off of his first submission win in the UFC. So he's gotten a submission in different promotions, but out of his 19 or his 18 UFC fights, he has only one submission, and he just got that win. So that's kind of funny. Or just, it's kind of cool. You know, you can always level up your game. It's never too late to learn new things, I guess. That's like a corny, silly way of putting it, but that's just super fun to see, in my opinion, that, you know, you never know, right? So he's pretty high as hell about it as well. And I would be too, because it's pretty cool. He just was like, give me anybody, I'll fight anybody. I can do everything. And he's on a 2-fight win streak as well, so that's a good pairing for each other, both riding some good momentum. He's got a wrestling, sambo, judo background growing up in that world, but is ultimately a big finisher on the feet with 12 round 1 TKO or KO wins. Oh my goodness, this guy is power 101. And a lot of times he's chasing you to get it, you know, getting a couple ground strikes in as well, and has put people's lights out in that position quite a few times. He's green in this picture, but he hasn't been green lately. So what does this mean? I'll let you decide. And he's a family man, and his wife are like such baddies. Like they just look so like literally like models, especially together. So that's cute. I think that these guys are definitely going to be looking to kill each other. It's going to be a lot of on the feet flurry, and I think that someone's going to get it done. I think that someone is going to get lights out. Let's see. All I know is that Ian Cutelaba is high on life, and I can't wait to see that. Can't wait to see him back high on life from his last win. And both guys are pretty quirky, pretty fun dudes. Next, we have Bate Estaca versus Hummingbird, a women's flyweight. Lots of drama with the flyweights, lots of women who have fought each other on this card. We got a ranked matchup. The legendary Jessica Andrade, Bate Estaca, pile driver, which funny enough, she's done a couple of pile driver moves. I mean, we might remember the Rose slam KO. That was like a tombstone pile driver, right? But actually the nickname has much earlier origins, to when she was first competing in BJJ, and she hit somebody with a pile driver move, which actually resulted in a disqualification. So, you know, fun origin story. She's a total legend. She is 33, but a veteran in the sport already, at number 14 in the UFC's pound for pound women's rankings. So done a lot, fought a lot of people. She's been in the UFC since 2013. So since she was a pretty young lady, and she has the most wins in the UFC out of any woman. So she's a very active fighter, and most fights. So not only just most wins, but most fights out of any woman in the UFC. 28 in the octagon. That is very, very cool. She can do it all. She's definitely known for her power, but also has a BJJ black belt, so watch out for that as well. And she is coming off of a decision loss to a lovely young lady who is also on this card, Natalia Silva. And that was a fight of the night performance. That was an amazing fight. So while it was a loss, it was a loss in style. That was a very, very cool fight. And yes, Jessica is known for her power, for her heavy, heavy hands. And she's a really active fighter, so we get to see a lot of Jessica Andrade. Fortunately enough, she is getting back in the octagon, and we thank her for it, because she is always putting on an incredible performance. And she is going against Jasmine Jasdavicius, who is a soon-to-be legend herself. So she got into MMA a little bit later in life, so still making her legendary. And she found her way to the UFC through the Dana White's Contender Series after being in Cage Fury, and she is really great at creating angles. So something about Jasmine is she is even though she comes from a brawling wrestling background and she'll throw in those nasty ground attacks, she can create some great angles on the feet and is extremely active with her striking, very punchy, very kicky. And she is also an active fighter, so her and Jessica have that in common. They are constantly getting back in the octagon. She fought 3 times in 2024. That's super solid, and she won all of them. So that was quite her year, and she is on a 4-fight win streak, coming off of a win against Mayra Silva. She is actually the most active flyweight since 2023. So we have 7 fights. That is crazy. So she is getting it done. And, in her own words, she, from her last fight against Mayra Silva, just I think a couple months ago, she was like, oh, maybe I should take some more time off. But all she needed was 2 days away from the gym, and she was back at it, ready, and she is durable. She has never been finished. Wow, she is so tough. So we love to see that. And she has such an energetic, positive attitude. It makes sense that she used to work at a youth shelter because she just seems like such a ray of sunshine, somebody who I feel like would be a great counselor, somebody to talk to. And she is just hardcore. She's really, really durable. Both ladies are pretty durable. Jasmine is definitely really hungry to get an opportunity at the belt, and she is on her way. So I really expect to see that energy there. I expect her to be thinking of that in her mind of making her way to the top, whereas Jessica has done a lot, and so it's not as much at stake, for sure. Definitely not much as much at stake. But this one's gonna be a banger. I think that this fight has fight of the night written all over it. Both ladies capable of some serious violence and some serious durability. I love this fight. Jasmine will also be riding the hometown momentum, representing Canada, of course. So maybe that'll give her a bit of an extra edge as well. Then we have a welterweight bout with Proper going against Chuck Buffalo. Matt Malott, another Niagara top team member, Proper. He saw the UFC in around 2006, and he knew it had to be him. So he is one of the people who made his way to the UFC, not necessarily starting in one particular discipline and discovering MMA. MMA was on his mind since the beginning. So he's of that breed, and he found his way to the UFC through the Dana White's Contender Series in 2021 after some time in Bellator, and he had a nasty guillotine win. That Gilly was nasty. So he made some waves right away, eyes on him, and yes, in 2022, he found his way. And he is a BJJ black belt who has never been subbed, so he's very, very strong in that category, but very, very kicky as well, keeping it really strong on the feet. Both of his losses, though, are from TKO KO style, so that is tough, but he is very efficient as well with his ground strikes and definitely does have that durability because he is coming off of a very hard-fought decision win with a lot of damage. He's a humble guy. He's always looking to build his game. Really exciting to see his future since he's still amassing a record. He's got less than 15 fights, so lots to see with Mike, and he seems like a pretty cool guy. His brother, Jeff, is also a pro hockey player, so we got some athletes in the family. And he's going against Chuck Buffalo Radke, who is quite the potty mouth. So another Bellator star who made his way to the UFC in 2023, and he is 3-1 so far. All of these fights in the first round, though, even the loss as well. And he can't stop swearing. That's one thing about him is he's got, a potty mouth. He's sassy, a bit of a chip on his shoulder, self-described. And he's ready for a dogfight or to put the dog to sleep. His words, not mine. Yes. He found fighting as a way to improve himself, and you can tell that similar to Mike, he takes this more than just seriously. It's a philosophical, it's a deep thing that he's got going on here, and he has never been submitted either. So I don't think either of these guys are going to be crafting any submissions on each other. That would be pretty surprising. And he's coming off of a TKO win. So again, his entire UFC career has been in the first round. So that's where Charles lives. And he is one of our GSP fans. And I think it's important to note the GSP fans who aren't Canadian and found their way on this card. That guy has so many fans. And he's got an interesting tattoo that says Blood Brother Pride, and I want to know more about that. So if you know, let me know. This is going to be two guys who I suspect are not going to be looking for a submission on either of each other, and are going to be showcasing some durability, hopefully. This one hopefully is going to be some durable violence. We should get some damage. We found our way into the main card, which has come under threat multiple times now. First fight is God of War versus Killshot, a lightweight bout. Benoit Saint-Denis, God of War, not to be confused with Deuce de Guerra, our Brazilian God of War, Davison Figueiredo, who we saw last week. Okay, we can share the nickname, of course. Kratos is quite popular. Yeah, so Benoit Saint-Denis comes from a judo background and followed in his father's footsteps with that, as well as with joining the army. His dad was in the army as well. And something about Benoit is he is pretty subby. He is a submitter. 70% of his wins are from submissions, and he himself has never been subbed. So yeah, he is in control, very submitter, and he's really looking for the arm. Okay, so whether it be arm triangle or arm bar, he wants your arm. So don't let it loose, because he will grab it. And he had a really, really hype UFC run after losing his debut. He had a couple of really exciting finishes and getting the submission or getting the knockout. I mean, this guy can do a lot. That's why he's on the main card. That's why he's found himself at number 13, as he's fought some baddies and he's done really well. But he's coming off of 2 losses right now, one of them to Moicano, and that was actually a doctor stoppage with the eye, so that's not it's kind of that's pretty unfortunate. And then previously before that was a pretty nasty finish caused by our Louisiana native Dustin Poirier. So coming off of 2 losses, but one of them almost doesn't count because it was a doctor stoppage. And he had a really, really great run. So Benoit Saint-Denis is not to be doubted, despite coming in off of a 2-fight losing streak. And that is why he is the minus 1,000 favorite right now, given both the circumstances, but also what he's proven to be capable of. And fun thing, his wife is a cop, so they, are a army guy, cop. It's pretty cute. And she is actually a pistol instructor, so she teaches people how to shoot. That's pretty badass. They're pretty badass together. So we were supposed to see Benoit Saint-Denis versus Joel Alvarez, but Alvarez, I believe, is injured. And just today, I believe today or yesterday, Kyle is announcing his step-in. Kyle Prapolik, Canadian. That's so great that we get a Canadian to help save this fight, because we really didn't want to lose Benoit Saint-Denis. We really didn't. We couldn't take that hit. So Killshot is coming in, and his motto is, if you don't take risks, you can't create a future. So this really makes sense that we're seeing him step in just a couple of days' notice, because that's who he is, okay? And he had 2 losses in the UFC, so he had a brief UFC stint and was cut. After just 2 losses, they said sorry. And now he's back trying to make it, make a big statement again. I mean, can you imagine if he got the win? That would be absolutely insane. And, it's not exactly likely, but let's not count him out, because he is on a 3-fight win streak. All right, but it's also important to know that there's a lot of cancellations mixed in there. So, yeah. He found mixed martial arts from starting in hockey and then going to boxing, so that's pretty cool. And Goku is actually his hero, so let's look for some weird energy to be channeled in this fight. This is gonna be a weird one. Yes. This is not exactly a switcheroo, because Kyle, he's being pulled to the UFC for another chance, and this is going to be pretty exciting, because imagine if he pulls this off against Benoit Saint-Denis, who is quite deadly. So it's not exactly likely, but would be one hell of an outcome. And I think either way, it's going to be one hell of a fight, given the circumstances. Benoit has got to get that win streak back. And Kyle is saying it's now or never, baby. So that should be a pretty weird one, but pretty cool. Then we have Tomb Raider versus Borbaletta, a women's flyweight, another women's flyweight. Alexa Grasso, number one, former UFC flyweight champ, women's flyweight, of course. She is one of my favorites, an Invicta star that found her way in the UFC in 2016, around the time that I started watching, and I have been following her career, and what an exciting journey. And she is coming off of a pretty lengthy trilogy with Shevchenko, the first ever trilogy in women's MMA. So that's awesome and historical. And they both of them have not fought anyone but each other since 2022. So it's a much needed close to that chapter, but a very exciting chapter at that. Alexa is just so cool. She is such a talented boxer, as many of our Mexican fighters are, and she has never been knocked out and only submitted once. And that one submission was from Tatiana Suarez, the most decorated wrestler in the entire women's roster in the UFC. That's pretty easy to say. Tatiana Suarez is very gifted in the wrestling category, very gifted at finding her way to submissions via that wrestling. And so, yeah, I'd say if that's your one sub loss, you're not submission vulnerable. Alexa is tough and she is very, very smart. She's got a crazy fight IQ, looking and making a lot of adjustments in the octagon. And just, yeah, she's on that decision grind, a real testament to her durability and her cardio. She's got some amazing athleticism. And she gets to be the Tomb Raider because she's a really big gamer girl and she would really like to play Lara Croft if there ever was a movie, and that would be fun. Love to see that. So she gets to be Tomb Raider, and she is another GSP fan. Okay, another non-Canadian who's inspired by George St. Pierre because he's just so inspiring, isn't he? Yeah, he is. And she is going against Natalia Silva, who is a serious up-and-comer, made her way to number 5, jungle fight champion, found her way to the UFC in 2022, and she is undefeated in the UFC so far. She is 6-0, and she has been putting on show after show. Taekwondo and BJJ black belt, that is a pretty awesome double black belt if you ask me, and it manifests into some very quirky, kicky, scary, takedown resilient performances. She is seriously takedown resilient. Love to see that, and I love to see that with the Taekwondo style as well, because the Taekwondo can be pretty risky, you know, you can open yourself up to takedowns, but she does a really good job keeping it on the feet. But she really wins every way. She controls the space. 12 fight win streak overall, so she is on quite the high. She is so fun, so fierce, and she is really, really focused in there. And her motto is to be strong and brave, and you definitely see that manifest itself in the octagon. And she's coming off of a fight of the night decision win against Andrade, who is also on this card. So, you know, we got some drama. I love to see it. And that was a really amazing performance. I mean, she completely outclassed her and was just such an incredible fighter in there. It was so cool. And in my opinion, she should definitely get the title shot if she wins this fight. Because if you can beat Alexa Grasso, who was able to beat Shevchenko and who is still number 1, I mean, makes a lot of sense to me. And she is just a real sweetie who loves Jesus. She has no nickname that I'm aware of, so we gave her a pretty butterfly. That is another fight that I think has a lot of fight of the night potential on it. I mean, 2 really crafty ladies, and Natalia is seriously on an insane streak, and I am really excited to see her fight again. She is one of my new favorites. Next, we have a men's bantamweight, Junior versus Puffin. You know Jose Aldo. He is an absolute legend and is still number 11. That is crazy that he is able to... Oh. So back in the day, he was the WEC's final champ, and he absolutely dominated before coming to the UFC in 2011. Wow. So he is really one of the last of his era and actually already inducted into the Hall of Fame, if you weren't aware. So former featherweight champ, 7 title defenses. I mean, he was really making it happen before that Conor McGregor stuff, and in general he's had a lot of really great fights since then. He's battled so many greats, and some people say that he is their featherweight GOAT. Okay, he's got a lot of fans, a lot of diehard fans, because he puts on seriously amazing performances. He is so powerful, very punchy overall, so does keep it on the feet, but also those low kicks. I feel like he kind of changed the game with his low kicks. Seriously, and he's really hard to pin down. He's got a very twitchy kind of fighting style that is very jittery, so it's hard to track this guy's movement. And yeah, keeping it standing, he's not in the sub world really, in either way, not really in the losing or winning category, just kind of avoiding that. He's coming off of a split decision loss to Mario Bautista, so looking to get back in that win. And he was retired, but he came back. He retired in 2022. Some people retire, but he's back. And he is a family man. So we got a powerful puncher in that octagon who is a sweet family man outside of it. And he'll be going against Ayman Zahibi, who gives me Puffin energies because, Puffins, they're resourceful and they're Canadian. In the regional scene, he had 6 first round stoppages, so he was absolutely dominating, really kind of miles above, and has done really well in the UFC so far. So found his way here in 2017 and is 6-2, so that's super solid. And more importantly, he's on a 5-fight win streak, so he's made his way to that number 14 spot. He is representing Montreal. That is very, very cool. So another Canadian, and he has never been subbed. Kind of irrelevant here because, Jose's not really going to be looking for that, but just, of course, fun to know. He's a BJJ black belt, and he wins in every way. So he's very powerful, and he definitely stuns people with the power in his hands, but he can find the submission. He can, grind it out to decision. He kind of has his wins split pretty evenly. But he keeps it standing for the most part. He does spend a lot of the fight on the feet, and is primarily head hunting. So where Jose will mix in, it seems like at least 1 low kick for every 3 strikes to the head. Yeah, you're gonna see a little bit of a primarily a focus on the head with Ayman. He's going to be looking for that head almost exclusively, and he's a family man as well. So we got 2 family men fighting for their families, a little older in age for the fight game, definitely mature. And as far as Ayman, he learned MMA to fight bullies originally. Both really sharp guys who've been doing well. So this one's going to be really exciting. And we got a legend entering the octagon again. Now we find ourselves at the co-main event, the Bullet against the Beast. That is a pretty cool setup, if you ask me, nickname-wise. Valentina the Bullet, you know her well. She is 37. She has been in the UFC for a while, and she has been in combat sports for even longer. Made her pro debut at the young age of 15 and found her way to the UFC in 2015. She is currently the women's flyweight champion and was able to win her belt back after the Grazo trilogy. I mean, wow, what a moment, as previously mentioned. She's actually the first UFC champion that's from Kyrgyzstan, which is so cool. We love to see that. And she had 7 title defenses so far. I mean, talk about dominance. She comes from a Muay Thai Taekwondo background and following in her mom's footsteps. Her mom is a decorated martial artist as well. And the thing about Valentina is while she does, her highlight reel is filled with a lot of really cool Taekwondo and Muay Thai stuff. She definitely has wins in every way. And she's only been finished twice. One of which coming at the hands of Alexa Grasso, also on this card. Valentina is such a global citizen. She speaks, I think, more than 3 languages. She's an absolute polyglot. And yes, coming off of the Grazo trilogy after she was able to recapture her belt and hasn't fought anyone but Alexa since 2022. So it's time to mix it up. And maybe you've seen her starring alongside Halle Berry in the movie Bruised. And if you didn't know, she actually has a degree in film directing. So she played a pretty big role in that movie in multiple ways. And she's also on a reality dance show in Peru because she speaks Spanish. So that is just so cool. She's always doing cool, fun stuff. And she has a lot of really interesting hobbies. And she is going against Manon Fiora, similar in age, a little bit less experienced, but has been so dominant and has clawed her way to this position for sure. So, similar to Shevchenko, Manon has a striking background, but actually a karate foundation. So, she's a karate black belt, and that is totally badass. She's also a BJJ black belt, and she has some pretty insane striking diversity. That's one of the things I really love about Manon is she hits everywhere, every target. No target is safe. Body, legs, head. But she is a toughie, she is a strongie, and she can find her angles any way that she needs. And her last performance was a total MMA showcase. I mean, she is coming off of a decision win, a 5-round banger against Erin Blanchfield, with the scorecards being 45-50 for all 3 judges. I mean, it was a clinic. It was a clinic, and Erin Blanchfield is no joke. She's been doing really well herself and is set to headline a card in just a couple of weeks against Macy Barbar. So having such a win over Erin Blanchfield speaks volumes of what Manon is capable of, in addition to everything else. But I think that being her last win is so crucial, and the win in such a fashion, because Erin is really smart. She is not somebody who it's easy to get a 45-50 win against. And so that was amazing. And that really proved that she's absolutely ready for this. And she's ready for this if it goes 5 rounds. She is so game, and she is so down to bring that forward pressure. I love to see the way that she is always marching forward. She does not have fear. So Manon can manifest a win in either a decision or a finish, but if there's one thing that she's going to avoid, despite having the BJJ black belt, it's submission. So that black belt is coming in handy to prevent anyone from getting any business down on her, but she's not really looking for that. She really prefers to keep it striking. She really is a karate girl through and through. So she is just not in the sub game. She's absolutely not in that sub game, and she also has not lost since Cage Warriors. So she is undefeated in the UFC, and that was 2018. So it's been a long time. She is a snowboarder in her free time, and she's actually a former firefighter. So these are 2 ladies who are so strong, so crafty, and striking is really their wheelhouse. So this is going to be a very quirky matchup, a very quirky karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai fusion. I think this one has the potential for some really exciting moments. And this is very, very well deserved on Manon's part. This is a long time coming, I think. I think Valentina and Manon are a really great match for each other, and Manon really deserves this opportunity. And this has a lot of firework potential. And I mean, these ladies have proven to have very little weaknesses, both of them. Very little weaknesses, very few flaws. It's going to be a very, very technical performance. The women's flyweight division is so exciting, and this is a very, very exciting fight for the belt between our champion and our number 2. Finally, Valentina is fighting someone who isn't Alexa Grasso, and we get to see if she still has it, right? If she, at the age of 37, is not done yet with her reign. Then we have our main event, a fight for the welterweight belt between Remember the Name and Koala. Bilal, Remember the Name Muhammad, our welterweight champion. He is both loved and hated. If you ask me, it's a love response. I love this guy. I think he is so awesome, so cool, and a Chicago native. Bilal Muhammad was in Bellator, and then he found his way to the UFC in 2016, so been following his career, and he is now the champion after having to climb a very, very steep ladder. this is definitely one of our champions who was not handed the belt, okay? He had to do a lot. And he has not lost since 2019 with his fight against Jeff Neal. So it's been a long win streak. 10 fights, in fact. So Belal is so solid, and he has faced some serious competition all over this welterweight division, landing him at the number 7 pound-for-pound spot. So deserved. Sean Brady has been so powerful and so dominant, and Belal Muhammad is really his only scratch. I mean, he just destroyed Leon Edwards and made it look like he didn't even want to be in there anymore. And Belal kind of did the same thing to him. And it's just a testament to what this guy can seriously do. He gets a lot of his wins via decision, and some people are, they roll their eyes at that, which I think is a little bit silly, because when you watch his fights, you can see the active adjustments that he makes. The Brady fight is a perfect example. And you can see the suffocation that he really puts on. It's, I feel like, just so textbook, so smart. His fight IQ it's out of the roof, all right? And he's not just some guy who is intelligent in the octagon. He is using his big brain and his big heart all over the world. He is such a humanitarian, just doing great things. I love to see it. Representing Chicago and representing Chicago fight team. So, he's a Chicago native who stayed here, and Chicago's got 2 champions now. So we love to see that. And he actually has the most decision wins in the UFC's welterweight history, 11 wins. I mean, seriously, what a baddie. He is such a baddie. And I'm so happy that he was able to eventually avenge the Leon eye poke loss, but we haven't seen him since then. So that was July of 2024. I really miss Belal. I'm really excited to see him get back in there. And this is the story of the switcheroo, all right? So he was supposed to be fighting Shavkat, and then Belal got injured, and then we had it booked again, and then Shavkat got injured. Uh-oh. So instead, we got switcherooed. Jack Della Maddalena was supposed to fight Leon Edwards a couple of weeks ago, but they called him and they said, hey, do you want to jump the line? So with Shavkat being injured, we needed to save this event, and Jack definitely deserves this opportunity. So supposed to fight Edwards, and he said, yeah, if you're going to give me a shot at the belt, of course the answer is yes. So Jack was influenced by his brother to try boxing, and you can definitely see that striking has been his foundation still. It's maintained. So he is on a 17-fight win streak. Holy cow, and has been looking incredible. So he hasn't lost since 2016. So both of these men have not tasted defeat in a while. The thing about Jack is he's a finisher. So he has 12 TKO KO wins, and he is just a striking's McGee. So he has a BJJ brown belt, but he's really looking to keep this in the hands. We have not seen Jack in a while, but he is coming off of a baddie performance against Gilbert Burns, an absolute comeback, probably the comeback of the year. Haven't seen him since, but wow, that was a great last fight. That was actually a card that Benoit Saint Denis was on as well. That's the card that he got finished by Poirier. Irrelevant, but just popped in the old dome. Anywho, Jack really is a performance of the night, fight of the night type guy. He puts on an absolute show and keeps it primarily on the feet. This is going to be a very, very cool matchup with some major stakes. Obviously, the belt is on the line. Like Valentina, Belal has showed a lot of dominance in his division, and this is an opportunity to, shake things up. I really think that Belal is going to grind this one out into a decision, and he's going to find a way to find the weaknesses and find his moment against Jack. But Jack is so exciting, so let's not count this koala out. I don't think anybody is counting our koala out. That's not his nickname, but he's Australian, and he looks like a koala, kind of, in a good way. That will be a very, very exciting close to the night. I can't wait to see what happens. I really miss Belal, so really excited to have him back in the octagon. What fight are you most looking forward to? I gotta say that Jessica Andrade versus Jasmine Jasdavicius and Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. Those are definitely the two fights that I am most looking forward to and that I think have the greatest potential to be fight of the night. Both of those fights. But I really want to know what you think, the fight that you're most excited to see and the fight that you think has the greatest fight of the night potential. I'm very curious on what you all think is going to happen in our co-main and main event fights and perhaps the paths to victory that you see for any of those competitors in those two fights. So let me know what you're looking forward to, and let me know anything else.